Okay, so it's really good to be here with you all today at this time. We live in unprecedented times, and many of us were born for living through these times, for a time like this. So, okay. Okay, and I love MUFON. I'm going to tell you my story from 1995 when I first found out about MUFON. And then since then I've been a member. So thank you for all the good work that you're all doing, investigations, reports, keeping everything connected. So that's important. So I'm going to start with just some trigger warnings and disclaimers. Going to unravel some stuff today spend some time in the cosmic zoo. How about that for a Saturday afternoon? I always ask everybody, no matter what, whichever audience, for your temporary suspension of unbelief. Because, and you know, being skeptical is good, but sometimes you need to let new information in. So, and you know, there's some stuff that I connect dots. And a lot of stuff has to do with perception and perspectives. And I hope to share a different perspective on the same subject that all of you are researching and studying, and just to add something new to the mix today. So I thank you for allowing that in. And my history, my background is paralegal, 25 years retired, out of it, proud of it, but very stressful job. But I basically took my skills and applied it to the book series. So some of you, we were already talking at my table, and they're all research books, so they don't need to be read in order. It's just about where you're at, what you're interested in. You can look things up. My table of contents is kind of like an index. So that's where I'm coming from. So I connect dots, and you know, that old child game, you know, you don't always see the big picture until you go back and forth and up and down and all around. So thank you for your patience on this journey today, because that's what I'm going to do. And it might seem like, whoa, where am I going? And let's hold on to it, because that dot will get connected hopefully at the end. So yeah, we are living through unprecedented times, and last year was epic for disclosure and basically vindicating a lot of what used to be a conspiracy theory is now not so much anymore. And remember Bob Lazar, 1989, came out and pretty much said we have crashed alien craft and reverse engineering, and the aliens look at humans as containers. Yeah, he said all that in 1989. And last year, David Grush, I'm sure all of you heard what he testified in Congress and also to News Nation, pretty much vindicated everything Bob Lazar said. So.
Wouldn't put it past this government that a cosmic Watergate has been underway for the last, 25 years. And at the same time, I don't think it's, I think as we're growing up, or from the government's point of view, I think we've been adults for hundreds of years, but from the government's point of view, we're still growing up, and eventually they might want to tell us something about what they've discovered over the decades.
Yeah, so he said that in 1977, and everybody remembers, Close Encounters of the Third Kind was, is this good? Okay, I go hold it this way. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was pretty much a documentary. E.T. was entertainment, but it was also based on a real alien that they called EB, extraterrestrial biological entity. So he basically gave him blue eyes to make him look more human. So I have this ongoing theme that the truth is stranger than fiction, and I'm going to unravel that today as well. So, you know, last year was such a big year for disclosure, and everybody is pushing, and there's some wonderful, great efforts being made. However, we've recently had a little bit of a setback, but you know, it's like the cha-cha, you take 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. And so what I'm basically asking people is to not put all their eggs in one basket. Easter's coming, so yeah, I'm sure you can relate. And that means that if everyone is waiting in bated breath for the US government to reveal everything they know about alien craft, the alien presence, which is what I call it, because they're here on this planet, and have been for a very long time, I think you guys are going to be waiting a really long time for them to come out and tell you everything. But thankfully, we have the whistleblowers, and we have MUFON directors, and thanks for the bravery and the courage of MUFON to come out and unravel and, you know, say what they're not saying. So we have to look to other sources. But besides that, there's also another piece of information that we need to look at, and that is Nibiru. So this, you might have seen our ad for today's talk. That's what this was. And Nibiru is the elephant in the room. And that's what no one is talking about. And why is that? Well, it starts off with an executive order that happened in 1983. So NASA sent a probe out into the outer edges of our solar system called IRIS. And IRIS came back with a perfect picture of Nibiru and showed it to President Reagan. And that's when it all began. So they knew that this was coming. So also what was happening pretty much simultaneously in the same era was my mentor and teacher, Zachariah Sitchin, met with the chief naval astronomer, Robert S. Harrington, and they compared notes. Now, Robert S. Harrington was getting all his information from space telescopes, you know, the NASA technology, and Sitchin was getting all his information from deep antiquity, from the past, from the cuneiform tablets, from the Sumerian tales, and they compared notes, and they pretty much corroborated on almost everything. There was just one little discrepancy, and that had to do with the sector of the Milky Way where it was coming through, which is the southwest. So it was pretty much Virgo Libra. Okay, so that's an arbitrary line. And so long story short, okay, back to Reagan. So him and that famous trio, Gorbachev and Margaret Thatcher, they all got together, they shared the information, and they made a decision that this had to be covered up, because if people knew that this was coming, then they would lose the status quo. People would stop paying their debts. The mortgage industry would collapse, and they didn't want that to happen, okay? Which is the same reasoning behind why the government doesn't tell you about the aliens either. And they've been testing the waters, suffice to say, since the 1930s. But really after World War II is when Majestic 12 got together and decided, hey, we need to control the information here, because they were involved with this alien presence that basically revealed themselves during World War II. So a lot goes back to what happened in World War II. Okay, so before I get off this, let me just connect a couple of dots here why these 3 presidents are in this picture. So it starts off with the Reagan executive order, and it went under national security. And so typically when presidents do EOs under national security, every succeeding, every succeeding president just continues it. They don't, question it because it's not a political thing, it's national security, so they just keep it going and they roll it over. So it got rolled over all the way through the Obama era. And Obama was petitioned by multiple sources to disclose Nibiru. Okay, so what Reagan did in 1983 was not only did he cover it up with an executive order, he made it a point of like deleting the word out of the lexicon. All right, so then anyone who came out and started talking about it were just like how people get treated, when they talk about aliens or UFOs, they were just kind of excommunicated or not taken seriously. And this is all part, these are the damages, the mental damages, emotional damages of the cover-up, And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So anyway, Obama was petitioned by multiple groups to reveal it, and he didn't. And there's a lot of reasons why in my first book about who he was, who he is, what family he came from with the CIA. He's very, very deep involved with that. So this was all part of, keeping that status quo, so he said no. So his EOs got rolled into Obamacare, okay? Well, this is how our government does business, is when they pass these bills that are like, this high, and if you all remember that famous quote by, Nancy Pelosi when they were asked, what's in the bill, can we read it? And she said, we can't tell you what's in the bill until we pass it, okay? So this is how they do stuff, and they slip things into these bills, not just pork, but other stuff. So Nibiru got rolled into all these, the EOs, ended up with, under national security, somehow ended up in Obamacare, okay? And then Trump comes along, and his first order of business and his first promise on day one when he got into the White House was he was going to unravel Obamacare. So he did, and out came Nibiru, and now we're talking about it. Okay, so there, that's said, because that's a thing. And so Obamacare isn't really relevant anymore, and pieces of it have just been, like maybe kept in other programs, but all this other stuff came out, which is why during the Trump administration, we ended up with disclosure. All right, there's no coincidence there. I can't tell you firsthand, I don't know whether it was something he ordered or it just happened coincidentally or it was by circumstance, but that's what happened. So now people are talking about, Planet X has been searched for since the 1800s, and I trace all of that in my 5th book because it was written about in astronomy magazines all up until the 80s. And it was the 1980s, that there was a blackout on it. So now it's being looked at again, seriously. So this photo that's on the bottom corner, left corner, I took myself and saw it with my own 2 eyes. And that was in Westminster, Colorado. And there was something around our sun. And that was not a lens flare, because I saw it without the camera. So there's planets in our system, I call them interlopers, intersecting in our solar system. And they've been here for a while. And it's not just one. It's a whole system. So, this goes way back to the past, and we need to study the past in order to understand the present and the future, because the past is prologue. Sitchin used to say that all the time. And this system was written in stone, and this is the Sumerians knew about it. They wrote about it. It goes by many different names depending on culture. The Sumerians called it Nibiru because in Sumerian that means the planet of crossing. The Greeks called it Hercules. The Chinese called it the Red Dragon. The Hebrews called it the Destroyer. It goes around our binary twin. So when I was growing up, nobody taught me that we had a binary twin. But the truth of the matter is that the universe, most stars are binary, if not trinary. So binary is very common. So our binary twin, which we call Nemesis, is a brown dwarf star, which is dead. However, it still orbits and it still moves, and it has 7 planets that orbit around it, and one of those planets is Nibiru. Now, Nibiru is the red-headed stepchild that's different than all the rest. It doesn't play well with the others. It doesn't orbit like the other ones do. It's tilted, it's elongated, and it actually comes in, intersects into our solar system every 3,567 years. So we're due. So the pictures on the side were taken pretty recently, and this is something that we're seeing all over the world. People are sharing photos of sunrises and sunsets and all these anomalies. And suffice to say, what is causing the wings around the sun is plasma. Okay, so the sun is having plasma exchanges with this other solar system and with Nemesis, the brown dwarf star. So Nemesis most of the time is behind our sun, so we can't see it. But every 2,000 years or so, it comes around. So we've been seeing it. But it also has planets and moons, so we're seeing that as well. So part 2 of today's presentation will pick up where this leaves off. So now I'm going to shift gears and show you this. I'm sorry the sound isn't great, but it's more about the visuals. So this is a scene, the opening scene from Resident Alien, season 3, 2 weeks ago. This is Kate, the mayor's wife, holding a baby in a nursery. And she's saying, just give me 10 more minutes with the baby. So how many of you here are watching Resident Alien? Are you following it at all? No? Oh, there's a few. Okay, good. So the truth is stranger than fiction here, and they have uncovered a lot of truths. Chris Sheridan really did his research, especially on abductees and what's going on behind, the alien abductions, and on multiple levels. That's why the show is so successful, because it resonates, because people can relate to it, because this is the stuff that is not being talked about, and they're acting it out, and the psychological damages that have been done to children when they tell their parents they saw a UFO, or there was an alien in their room at night, or they have a little bump on the back of their head, and everybody goes, oh, you're just making it up, or it's just your imagination. And this is what our disclosure era is healing now, because this has to come up in order for it has to be talked about, it has to be understood, and it has to be discerned. And that's my humble attempt to do that in my books here. And this is just about my artwork. because that was my idea. And my childhood friend Jerry LaFaro, he got it, and I'm a writer, not an artist, and so this is about the alien hybridization program, and how many of us have been used for different programs. It's not all one, and I'm going to unpack that for you. So back to The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. We have so many shows that since the late 50s, early 60s, that have been trying to tell us what they can't tell you right out. So let's just discern the words: hard disclosure versus soft disclosure. So these TV shows qualifies as soft disclosure. In fact, all TV and movies are soft, that talk about aliens or the concepts with secret space program. So I Dream of Jeannie was all about the secret space program, okay? And the secret experiments that were happening behind the scenes and the interaction with extra dimensionals. And it just was packaged in this rom-com, funny romantic comedy, that was kind of cute and sexy and funny, and everybody watched it and they went, oh, that was it. But I started rewatching it recently, this past year, and I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about going to Mars, they're talking about the moon, they're talking about all these things that were in 1963 nobody would talk about. So why did this happen? Okay, so MJ-12 was formed, Majestic 12 were 12 of these admirals that, the Navy rules the military, so they were these 12 general admirals and everything got together after Roswell and decided, well, we got to control the information here. We can't just come out and tell people what's going on, because they just got over World War II. And that was sort of iffy because there was a Cold War going on, and then there was other wars going on. So they really had to keep things under wrap, and they couldn't allow hard disclosure. Hard disclosure is the government coming out with an official statement saying, oh, we're not alone. We have these aliens here that crashed in Roswell or Socorro, or there's multiple crashes all over the place, and they can't talk about that. Okay, so instead they took the route of soft disclosure, which is handing these ideas, these concepts, some actual stories, real stories, to film and TV screenwriters and directors. And that's why we have this culture that we have here. So my favorite Martian, I mean, that wasn't just a sitcom. That was and all of this has to do with preparing the public. All of these shows have to do with preparing the public for the concepts for when everything gets unveiled. And we are in the word apocalypse is Greek, but it means revelation and disclosure. And we are living in it. Every generation seems to have a TV show about aliens. Yeah, remember Alf? That was funny. Yeah, Mork and Mindy and Third Rock, and of course Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek was actually produced by, Desilu. Lucille Ball made that happen. And, it started out as like space cowboys, and it ended up being, this highly sophisticated scientific science fiction. But good science fiction has to be approved by scientists, because they have to say, well, this is probable, we're just not there yet. And sure enough, that's exactly what Star Trek did. They worked with these scientists so that when they presented these scientific, which was considered science fiction, it's actually like there's about 68 different technologies that they presented in the original Star Trek series that is now part of our reality. Okay, so if you were living in the 60s, you'd say, oh, that's futuristic, that's science fiction, it's fiction. but it actually was just future science that we haven't reached yet. So you can't really call it fiction, it's just out of time, because now it's our reality, so it's not fiction anymore. So they were preparing the public for rolling out the alien tech. And the alien tech they've known about since World War II. So this is just a little bit about me. So my story was featured on UFO Witness in 2022, Season 2, Episode 5, which is basically was a docudrama they did on what I showed you, the opening scene of Resident Alien, which is why I'm putting it in the mix here, because that's what happened to me. Okay, so that's what I've been healing from. And I'm going to get into that with the implants and how the different implants have to do with different programs that the aliens use us for. So not everybody's used for the same thing. So, and I've been doing these Truth is Stranger Than Fiction talks to science fiction conferences, and I was telling Karen last night that, you know, as a social experiment, or just as a sociology research, they had me there one year in 2015 on an author alley, and I was the only nonfiction author with all sci-fi and fantasy writers. And when I told them that a lot of this, especially Star Trek, is real, okay, some people said to me, I prefer the fantasy. And that's very revealing about where we're at, and that's why MJ12 made that decision to put these concepts into TV and film to prepare the public through the culture, because people could not handle if you come right out and you say, oh, we've got these, you know, giant tall aliens, and some of them have scales on them, and they're ugly, and they do this to you and they do that to you, like, who's going to really, like, people would just freak out. So that's why, you know, we have to watch more movies because the truth is in the movies. Just a joke. So same thing with the portals and the stargates. I'm going to show you that, you know, like that movie is based on a lot of truth and history, especially the Stargate that was retrieved in Iraq and brought to NORAD, Colorado Springs. I was living there at the time, and I remember all the stories, the local stories, which obviously got covered up, and, you know, NASA came out and said, yeah, you know, we have multiple portals all around the planet. And so this is something that I thought, well, isn't that interesting? It's in the Bible. The Bible, you know, people get, you know, like I said, trigger warning, okay? I do make references to the Bible and the exo-biblical texts, because they were records of the past. What they did to them and how they created religions and all that kind of stuff, that's secondary. The fact is that they are historical accounts of interaction, and also how the ancients moved through the planets. So I prove through scripture, okay, in my second book, that Elijah and Enoch, who I call frequent flyers, they were up and down, back and forth. And one of the stories in the story with Ahab, where Elijah had to get to Jezreel to meet Ahab, and the scripture says, and he ran really, really, really fast, and he shows up dry as a bone, and meanwhile Ahab is trudging through the mud because there was a thunderstorm, and he's all messed up, and he gets there late. So how did Elijah get there so early? The short answer is he went through a portal. And I prove that through scripture, through the original Hebrew that's been covered up by the English translations. Even the names, all the names of all the gods are covered up in the English Bible. So if you're an English person and you're reading the Bible, you think it's all one God. Oh, God said this, and then God said that, and then oh, the Lord said this and the Lord said that. And why is he contradicting himself? Because it's not the same God. So that's what I'm unpacking, just to help people with understanding that there's a cast of characters of gods that are in the Old Testament, the Torah, the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, that have been completely covered up by the words, which are titles, not names, God and Lord. So you can find that in book 2. But the portals also were covered up. And Jesus also went through portals. How did he end up in Nashville? How did he end up in India? And there's records of him moving in and out of different parts of the planet. Suffice to say, the planet has portals, and the ancients knew about it. So, where do we go from here? Well, we have to cultivate discernment, and that's my main message. We teach what we need to learn, and that's something I had to learn. So I'm just sharing. So, people say, oh, well, it's good to be street smart, book smart. We need to be spirit smart, because that's what we have that distinguishes us as human beings that other creatures don't have, that they covet. And that is our soul and our spirit that has a connection to the Great Spirit or the Holy Spirit. So I prove that the Great Spirit and the Holy Spirit are one and the same based on linguistics. It's just a matter of culture. So that's where we need to go to understand what's going on. Because even our minds, we can't always trust because they're playing with our minds, right? And people get brainwashed and implanted so that they can't see the truth. So back to this again. Truth is stranger than fiction. So back in the 80s, there was a series called V. Brilliant. Absolutely, like that was truth. So whoever put that together knew what the situation is here. And I've heard multiple whistleblowers talk about it because they interact with them. I mean, William Tompkins is probably one of the most famous ones. You can find his videos on YouTube. But he talked about, what he saw with these reptilians and how they appear one way, but they're really these, ugly, scary, scaly, tall, lizard-looking beings. And there's been multiple reports from people who work in the military or who are in security or who are underground. And these are beings that do not want to be revealed. Plus the fact that it would scare everybody. So that's another reason for the cover-up. But they're very active, and there's a lot going on. So we really have to sort of pay attention to who they are, where they came from, and why they're still even pulling strings. And this is part of the battle. So I get in the middle of these controversies between the Christian community and New Agers, and they both are opposites, have been for many years, in terms of their viewpoint on who are the aliens. So suffice to say, the Christians think they're all demons, okay? Well, that's a half-truth, right? But it's not a whole truth. So you want the whole truth, you got to get the other half. So, and then of course the New Agers want to believe that they're benevolent and they're all good. And, if anyone contacted them, they had to be good because they can only attract good. Okay? And that's another belief system that's in the New Age community, which it's a deception. Okay? Because the very opposite is true. Sometimes because you're good, because you have this aura or your soul energy, or you have this and you have that, that's why they're attracted to you. Because they want to steal that. They want to harvest that. They want to use it. Okay, so that's going on. That's an aspect, not the whole thing. So the truth is often in the middle ground. So we have to be able to look at both sides and say, okay, well, they have a point there. And they do, because some of them are demons. But let's unpack the word demon. The word demon is Greek, daemon, which literally translated to intelligences. All right? Nowadays, we hear the word demon and everybody thinks evil, evil spirits. Okay? But AI is a daemon, demon, right? Artificial intelligence. So it's all about what spirit gets put into it that makes it good or evil, right? I'm here using technology. It's neutral, right? It's here to serve us, not control. Once it starts to control us, then it becomes evil. So, and in terms of ancient history, when it comes to demons, they were used as servants to build Solomon's temple, for instance. It's in the Old Testament. Solomon summoned them, and he used them to build a temple that was mathematically precisioned. So they used intelligences. So it really has to do with who's controlling them as to whether they are good or evil. Okay? So suffice to say that there's a lot of grays that are, cloned. They're hybrids. They're cybergenetic beings, meaning they've got some biology, but they also have a lot of technology in them, and someone is controlling them. So and that's what makes them good or evil. All right. But the Christians are right about there are demons living inside the earth, but they're not all demons. All right, because we have breakaway civilizations. Because what happens when the planet becomes inhabitable? What happens when Nibiru and it's past? This isn't our first rodeo. It's unprecedented for us because we don't have memory of it. Okay, but the ancients did. And what did they do when Nibiru started shaking the earth up? Now Nibiru, just let me put this out there, is not going to hit the earth. It never has, and it won't. However, the earth is going to move through the debris field of Nibiru, which is full of all kinds of space junk, comets, asteroids, meteorites, fireballs, and red iron oxide. And when the earth goes through that debris field, the earth will change, and we will have a pole shift, and we've had pole shifts before. So the system will have magnetic pull on the Earth's core, and it's going to lock on for a period of time, and then what will happen is that there will be crustal displacement. So then there's going to be tidal waves, and once it passes, the Earth goes into a whole new phase, and then we're in a whole new era and a whole new age. So it's like a sunset. Every sunset is a sunrise, and it's that concept. So this is stuff that we have to integrate it in and be prepared and adjust to what the ancients did. So what did they do when they saw this coming? When they knew that it was inhabited, they went underground. That's how they saved themselves. And there's nothing new under the sun, because that's exactly what our global elites and the billionaires and all the people who have the wherewithal to create cities underground. I mean, and some of this stuff it's not even secret. You can go look at it. I mean, there's places like in Europe and Denmark and Iceland, they have they can fit 900,000 people underground. Okay, and we have it in Colorado, and inside Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD. They've been underground for a long time. So there's a lot of stuff happening inside the earth. It's not just us, it's the ancients. And there was an ancient breakaway civilizations that went underground and they stayed there. And that is what I believe is what's happening, that they're surfacing because of the planet is changing. So if we can have these concepts that, well, that's what we're doing, they're going underground, so why wouldn't we think that the people in the past didn't do the same thing? So this is, yes, God did create aliens and extraterrestrials, and they're not all evil. However, some of them have rebelled. So we're in the middle of a war. It's a battle. It's an ongoing battle. So to judge them all as evil is not fair. So we have to, this is my whole thing about discernment. So Earth is a clash of two kingdoms, and that's my conclusion. And we don't think in terms of kingdoms anymore, Americans, because we broke away from the British monarchy, and we think we're all this democracy and this republic and all of that. But that doesn't mean that the Earth and the ancients and the aliens and the gods and everybody else doesn't look at things in terms of kingdoms, because that's how it was for millennia. Okay? And so this is what I did in my first book, and I basically put this into categories, and how there's this clash between these two main kingdoms, with what's happening in the middle is always that, alliance, the Confederates, the spies, the double agents, the people who want peace, the people who play both sides. And we see that in our society too. The ETs aren't that much different. But everything in our organic life forms on Earth is separated into kingdoms, right? We have the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the mushroom kingdom. I hear the mushroom king's a real fun guy. So this is, this goes all the way back to the Anunnaki Wars. And this is also evidenced in stone. This is what the Sumerians talked about. This is in the cuneiform. This is the Enuma Elish. This is in all of these ancient texts. And they lived for hundreds of years. Humans lived for hundreds of years. We got changed. So if you read the beginning of the Bible, everybody lived to be like 900 and something. Methuselah was like the oldest living, 969. What happened? Then the floods of Noah came, and then nobody lived to be past 100 if they were lucky, right? So something happened. It was a genetic manipulation that, in my opinion, was a downgrade, not an upgrade. So this is just a piece from my new book, the fourth edition of book 1. I added these 20 chapters, and this all has to do with unpacking what's behind the alien agenda. And it's Machiavellian. And this is ancient. They've been using this. Romans used it. They've been using this for years. How they control is through divide and conquer. So it's one thing for us to wake up and have this awakening and disclosure and apocalypse and all of that, but we have to find common ground. We have to unite in order for us as a human species to win, because they've got the upper hand here because they're dividing us over all kinds of stuff, right? I don't have to tell you, right? Everything. Oh, you're on this side or that side. I mean, gender, history, religion, politics, you name it. And who's pulling those strings? Well, these aliens, they've been studying us for years. They've been part of this manipulation because we're not the top of the food chain. I'm sorry to say. We are not all that, we've been manipulated. We have to get what we used to have back. But we're not going to do that by fighting each other. So that's that. So here's, as if like this is part of the deception. We are living in the end times. And what does that mean? When people say, what does it mean by the end times? So it's astrological. So we are in the end of the precessional age of Pisces. And we just had the equinox, and we're at 4 or 5 degrees of Pisces. When the sun rises on the vernal equinox in the beginning of the stars of Aquarius, That is the official beginning of the age of Aquarius. So suffice to say, we're overlapping because we have it's almost like dawn. You know, I always use this as an example because people can relate to it. So an hour before the sun rises every morning, if you go out, you can actually watch the sky change colors, right? Isn't that cool? And it goes from like really dark, and then it goes light and purpley and all these different hues and it's like an hour it takes until the first light, the first ray of the sun comes above the horizon. So we are in that dawn period before the age of Aquarius. So we're seeing it. We're seeing glimpses of it. We're seeing lights. We're overlapping it. We have the technology. We're in disclosure and all of this, but we're not completely there yet. And that's what the end times represents. And that's what the end time prophecies point to. And what happens at this end time, the first thing is deception. So that Yeshua talked about this. He said one of the first signs is going to be mass deception. So and I addressed this in book 1, you know, because back in the 90s, you know, everybody was like, oh, I do, you know, there were all these, like, remember Larry King Live, and he had Phil Glass on, and they were like, oh, I want proof. And oh, if you saw it, you were in a spaceship, or you saw a spaceship, or you had a contact with an alien, where's your proof? Did they give you a pen? You know? and so we were in this like heavy kind of skeptical phase back then. Remember the 90s? So there's a lot of proof. We just have to, you know, it's like distractions. You not always have to look at the physical. Look at the other stuff too. So a lot of these beings have this ability, like the best actors and actresses, the top Academy Award winning, you know, illusionists, to create this illusion to people that they're good, that they're here to help you, that they want to heal you. And they do. They have powers. They have the power to heal. They have the power to do all kinds of miracles and extra dimensional, supernatural. So there's like paranormal, and then there's supernatural. So, but some of them, their powers hit the wall when a more powerful god or group or kingdom gets involved and puts them down. And that's the story that I'm exposing in my book series, is who is the top god? Who is the one that we're supposed to, you know, have a relationship with, so that we don't get sucked down into all these deceptions? Because a lot of people have already been down that road with religious cults and stuff like that. So this is all part of, and this is in the Bible. Again, it's written there, but, you know, it took them years to start talking about it. And then, of course, we have all this ancient, you know, artifacts about these beings. What was with this Aryan race? The blue-eyed, but they had different color skin. So people say, oh, you have blue eyes, you must be white. There was a lot of dark-skinned beings, people, even today, with bright blue eyes and green eyes. So where did that come from? That came from a race of beings. In fact, today's Iranians, which used to be Persia, so the Bible talks about Persia a lot, which they changed their name about 50 years ago, and they're now Iran. The Iranians believe they are the original Aryans, meaning this race of beings. Okay, so there's something going on here with the end time battle. And this is an ancient battle. There is nothing new under the sun. So they're fighting for control over not only our planet, but us and this whole solar system. So these are, you know, different statues showing these what they believed were gods. I mean, they worshipped them as gods. So, and they got punished for doing that. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that they got punished for that, because the same thing is going to happen again. And that is exactly what the end time prophecy talks about, is that there's going to be such a need for ET. Oh, contact an ET. You can contact an ET, any ET. Don't you care who it is? I mean, as human beings, like, don't you have some sort of like just discretionary distinctions about who comes into your inner circle, who you have a relationship with, who you want to be in contact with? Well, we need to apply that same discernment with these beings, because there's a big deception going on, and patterns repeat. And that's why there's such a thing called generational curses, because of ancient patterns that go through the bloodline, and people just like keep doing the same thing over and over again. So this is a piece that we need to look at, because the past is prologue, because the same thing is going to happen again. So these are drawings by some contactees and whistleblowers, and then of course there's Bob Lazar again, who told us in 1989 that the aliens look at us as containers. Well, isn't that interesting that the Bible calls us vessels? Vessels, containers, okay, I think that's a thesaurus word, right? It's the same thing. And C.S. Lewis said that there's no neutral ground in the universe. You're either owned by God or countered by Satan. You can't be in between. Even atheists, there's no such thing as a real atheist, because how many people who are atheists, then all of a sudden they have an encounter with God, they're no longer an atheist, okay? So it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So they want what we have. We have something very valuable to them, and that is our soul. And believe me, they have a whole technology, and I uncover this in my first book, on how they extract soul energy out of us, how they can take it and put it into somebody else, or into one of their hybrids. So, what we do to cattle is what they do to us. So we take cows and we eat their meat, we drink the milk, we use the skin, we make clothing and leather and all kinds of products. Don't think for a second that they're not using our energy for their purposes, because that's exactly what's behind the alien abductions. And this has been corroborated by a lot of the doctors I'm going to get into in a minute. So, yeah, so this is, talk about puppet masters, talk about Machiavellian presence. They are the ones behind the kingdoms of this earth, because they have their own kingdom. So they want to keep controlling from behind the scenes. And when they do come to the surface, or they do interact with us, or they get involved, they come as human. So people can't always see that, oh, well, you're not really human, you're really a lizard, or you're really a reptilian, until the fruits come out. Because Yeshua said, by their fruits you will know them. So there's a whole hierarchy of reptilians and draconians. So they're, the words are interchanged: draconian, reptilian, lizards, and the hierarchy has to do with who's controlling who on the top. So you got these winged beings, which was written about in the Mothman prophecies, if you guys remember John Keel's book, and they were the winged ones, and they sort of like have this like priesthood of them, and some of them are really gigantic. They're like 9-10 feet tall, and then there's like regular sized and different colors, and I once saw this luminous lizard man, it was like aqua with you know, kind of like shiny, like you know, and that's what got me like, whoa, what's got my attention. And then I got an iguana. And I was like, for 2 years I raised an iguana, and I learned so much about this, because there was such, back in the 90s, you know, everybody was hating on the reptilians, and it was like, well, what does it mean when the Lord says in the Bible, all of creation moans and groans for the redemption, okay, because the whole earth is under a curse. And that was evidenced in Genesis. So not just the men, the women, the earth itself, and all the creatures are under this curse. So this is what the end times are basically going to focus on, is breaking that. Okay, when the Lord returns and restores everybody and every creature back to their original place. Okay, so humans, like we were talking earlier about, you know, how now we don't live to be 900 anymore, but the ETs do. We've heard of ETs where they're like 900, 1,000 years old, and they look like they're 40. They don't look a day over their 39 or 40. You know, what happened there? Why can't we have that again? And we will. The same thing with the creatures of the earth. So the reptilians are very successful survivors. Okay, I mean, if you study snakes or iguanas or, you know, the creatures that we have, the reptiles, they're very successful in terms of survival. So there's something about them that has always been, and there's a lot of people who believe that the dinosaurs were these giant, that's what they're, terrible lizards, that's what the word means, these giant lizards, and that they were created by these giant beings. The Anunnaki were giants. They were 35 feet tall, and they were put on Earth. And then one of the floods came, and the comets came, and all this, and they went underground. And they reinvented themselves. Okay? So when, I know I'm bouncing around, but so back to that promise, that's a promise of God, is that all of creation is going to get restored. And that means them. So they went into this rebellion. So these fallen angels ended up in their bodies. So this is all part of our liberation. And that's what people have to focus on. That's where our hope lies, is the time when we get restored, when we get liberated. So how do we do that? It's soul technology. Right? We're all focused on all this other technology. We have to focus on the technology of the soul, which has to do with connecting with the creator of our souls. No, and this is another piece, a very important piece, is that these beings cannot create souls. So that's why they're stealing soul energy from us. So they take a piece from you, a piece from me, a piece from everyone, they put it all together and they make a hybrid. Because they're not creator gods. They don't create the soul. So that's what we have that they don't. They have a hive mentality. They have a group mind. So that's part of it. Now, loosh is a term that got, you know, introduced in the 90s by Robert Monroe Institute, and it has to do with soul energy. And some people use it just for the blood, you know, the adrenochrome stuff, but it's all part of the same grouping. And that is what they're after. So this is where we have to become more protective of our soul and make sure that our soul is anchored with the Creator God who created it, because that's who everybody goes to see when you die. Everyone. So that was my near-death experience, and that's what sort of changed me after that. And that's when the book series came out. So I've been studying a lot of this stuff since the 90s, and I was writing my first book on who are the ETs and the aliens, and I was doing astrology, I was, you know, and long story short, I had a heart attack, was caused by trauma. and tremendous stress and not sleeping, and it was the cortisol that was running. Too much cortisol causes heart attacks. My heart was fine, thank God. So both my parents, my mother died when I was 6, my father in 2007. So I blacked out and I saw both of them. And that's the first time that ever happened since I was a baby. So I thought, oh my God, I must be dead. And there's my parents, and then this hand took me. And these are my illustrations to try to describe what I saw. And this hand took me, and he couldn't really see his face clearly. It was just like a hand and a light, which is what I'm showing there, and pulled me up, and it was just him and I walking hand in hand on this bright green emerald field with a bluebird sky, and it was just the two of us. And we walked and we talked, and his name is Yeshua, and he told me that he wanted me to rewrite my book about the aliens with him in it. So I did, and it's turned into 6 books. Book 6 isn't out yet, but it will be by the end of this year. And so it took me a couple of years to process everything and edit the book, and then book 1 came out in 2012. So that's my story about the book series. And so he showed me a lot of stuff that I was involved in talking about the ETs and the aliens, and he showed me like who they were, and that's where the title "Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo" comes from, because and who he was in relation to who they are, and that's what's in the books. So so he's coming to set things straight. Changed, everything's going to get changed. So it's back to the kingdoms again. So I find it interesting that so Yeshua means salvation in Hebrew, salvation and deliverance. So he is the Messiah, he is the Moshiach. So in Hebrew there's Mashiach and Moshiach. So anyone could be a Messiah. There's lots of false messiahs. There's lots of people thinking they're the Messiah, but there's only one Moshiach, which is Moshiach Nagid, which means Messiah King. So he, by his own admission and his own words, said he was extraterrestrial. Not alien, extraterrestrial, because the definition of the word extraterrestrial means that they're not of this planet. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they're alien, because there's a lot of humans that are extraterrestrial, but that doesn't make them alien. The word alien means that it's non-human. Non-human intelligence is an alien. Okay, but we have watered down that word by calling immigrants aliens, but yet we're all human. So we have to kind of maybe change our lexicon just to get discernment, because everything gets all mixed up and people get confused, and that's all part of the deception, right? So we're looking for clarity here. And so he said, I am not of this world, extraterrestrial. He said, my kingdom is not of this world, extraterrestrial. So he talked more about his kingdom than anything else, but there were 2 parts to it. One was the kingdom of God is within you. Everybody has it. It's a deposit. It comes from the soul and the spirit. Then he said, you need to pray for my kingdom to come. What kingdom? The kingdom of heaven. So the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God. So what is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is coming to earth. So instead of us going to heaven, which people say, when you die you go to heaven and everybody thinks you go up to the stars, you actually go inside the earth. And I prove this through scripture in my 2nd book. Where do you go when you die? There's multiple dimensions inside the earth. There's hell dimensions and there's heaven dimensions. And it says so in the Bible, okay, that people go inside the earth. They go to paradise, that's heaven. They go to Abraham's bosom, another description of heaven. And he also says that when he returns, he is going to collect his people from inside the earth, waiting for him in heaven. Okay, so this is another perspective, because this is what, again, was covered up through mistranslations, misunderstandings. So So then there's a kingdom of heaven that has come, that's not here yet, that is coming to earth to basically heal the earth, break the curse, and establish heaven on earth. That's our hope. And make earth like the grand central station of the universe, meaning that all these different beings, you know, the galactic federation, they all come together because they all acknowledge and they're all part of this kingdom of heaven, which is a vast, vast word, because the heavens are huge, and there's many different solar systems and planets and other kingdoms. So there's kingdoms within kingdoms, and this is the message of the Messiah. So this is what we're heading towards. But before that happens, there's going to be a showdown. And it's already begun. There's battles going on, because the rebels who went against the kingdom of heaven in the last galactic war, they're been left over here on earth, and they've been getting themselves ready for their last hurrah. And that's prophesied. It's written. It's like a script. It's unfolding just like a script. So you can't make this stuff up. So anyway, that's where all this is coming from. So, you know, he showed me, and I was a mess, okay, physically, emotionally, everything, okay. It took me a year and a half to heal physically from what caused the heart attack, but he saved my life, and so I have to tell about what happened, because I never thought that I could be delivered of the stuff that I was about. Like, I had all kinds of problems, and I had implants. And the implants got removed through my deliverance, okay? So I was being used as an incubator in the alien abduction hybridization program for years. And I had multiple miscarriages. I could never really, like, carry a pregnancy. Until I was 39 years old, I had my first and only child. She broke the mold. She's going to be 24 on Tuesday. Yeah, praise God. So, anyway, but I was implanted, and that got dissolved after I went through deliverance after my near-death experience, which, you know, and I would see the Lord. He would show up at the end of my bed, and I've seen him like 6, 7 times. So I know that it's him, and I hear his voice, and he's very pithy. He just, you know, gives you like one sentence, this and this and that is that, and I just, so I didn't have a family, so I think that's why he kind of like adopted me. But also I was raised Jewish. Please don't hold that against me. And you know, Jews are not supposed to believe in Jesus. In fact, Jews are very angry about Jesus. So I was excommunicated from all my Jewish family and friends for taking this position. Okay, so at this point it doesn't matter anymore, you know. Like, I don't care, because I know what I know, and I know who I know, and I know how I got well. So I had multiple allergies, sinus problems. I had an implant inside my right nostril, which disappeared, dissolved, probably got, you know, dissipated through my body. And not physical surgery, but spiritual surgery. And I was delivered of all these problems, like health issues. So that's my story. And he showed me how to tell the two kingdoms apart. And that is by their personality, by their fruits. So these are the 7 principalities that belong to Satan. Now, the word Satan is Hebrew for adversary or rebel. It's not necessarily a name, it's more of a title, because there's, in my book, I pluralize it, there's multiple Satans, multiple rebels that are waging war against the kingdom of heaven over us and over earth. And we're caught in the middle. We're like the monkey in the middle, you know, so to speak, being pulled on both sides. So these are, tangible, spiritual, emotional, psychological, mental things that people can recognize in and see what is coming. Which kingdom does that come from? That doesn't come, like that's what you can say when somebody's just like criticizing and judging on you and, putting you down and accusing you of this, that, and the other thing, trying to shame you, guilt trip you, manipulate you, gaslight you. That doesn't come from God. That's the other guy. Same thing with bitterness. People get caught up in, they can't forgive, somebody did them wrong. I know, because I went through it. That's what made me sick. Feeling rejected, everybody goes through this on one level or another. So this is where the soul can be renewed and restored by moving away from those spirits, because they are spirits, and implants. So there's implants, and the implants are held in place by spirits. So when you break your contracts and agreements with these forces, with these implants, with these spirits, you get free. And that was the process that I went through for deliverance. So, there's the courts of heaven. We have access to the courts of heaven. You can go and state your case, which I learned to do. That's how I got free from my bloodline, my generational curses that caused me all kinds of problems. I don't have enough time to go into them today, but suffice to say, that is how we break the curses. But you have to go to the king. I call myself a spiritual Karen because I got to go straight to the top. Why do you have to go through all these intermediaries when you have access to the king? Go straight to the king, talk to him directly. Everyone has access through Yeshua. Everyone. And that levels out the playing field because people have created this thing where, you can contact an ET, but only that particular person can talk to that ET. That particular person is that medium or that creator of that ET. And we've seen in the UFO field that some of these ETs were made up, by people's imaginations. Corey Good, remember that? He admitted in a deposition that he made them up, that it wasn't real. But it's not exclusive. This exclusivity, this sort of, superiority that only that person can talk to that ET. You can go straight, everybody can go straight to Yeshua. And he will answer. So that is something I'm just putting into the mix here, because this is part of our soul health that we need to go. And so heaven is coming to earth. So eventually all this won't be something that is done through faith. It's going to be like face to face, which is what the promises of God are. So this is my next book after book 6 is this is how I'm still working on it, but I just wanted to introduce it here. So it has to do with breaking curses. And the aliens are a big part of it. So just almost, let's see. So our culture is, saturated with all these fun superhero movies, and there's a reason for that. Because when you look at the situation, let's be real, we can't save ourselves. And anyone who thinks they can, we are the change we've been waiting for, it's just pure arrogance and narcissism. We have to come to terms with the fact that what is happening is much bigger than us, and we do need something outside of ourselves to liberate us. So that is why a lot of these movies are introducing this concept of saviors and messiahs. And that's all part of the end time prophecy, is this false messiah, this counterfeit savior that is an alien, that comes in human form and gets 2/3 of the world to believe and worship him. So be part of that 1/3 that sees through the deception. because that happens right before the real Messiah returns. And I'm not making this up. That's what the prophecy says. That's the order. And we are very close for that to happen. And just suffice to say, if anybody's wondering, well, when is that going to happen? It's going to happen at the end of World War III. In fact, World War III has already begun, and it says that he ends World War III with a peace treaty between, he's the only one that's able to do this, between Israel and all of her enemies. 10 Muslim nations go against, including Persia, which is Iran, and Turkey, and Russia, and they go against Israel, and even America is not even there anymore. Okay, in the end time prophecy, nobody's standing with Israel. And that's when the Lord returns. But the Antichrist, the false Messiah, pulls fire down from heaven, which is alien technology. So all these superhero films are preparing us to understand this concept, because there will be a real Star Wars above our skies. And the whole world, the prophecy says, will see it. So if you understand what's going on, then you can say, okay, well, this is this and that is that. And don't forget, we have this other system intersecting in our solar system. So, you know, in previous talks, people have asked me for other works of people who, you know, and I'm glad I'm not the only one, I'm not the only voice saying this. And so Len Kasten, he's uncovered these books, have been out for a while, that basically reveal about this alien New World Order, and this is what's being planned, and the globalists, they're working through the globalists and all this. This is all part of conspiracy theory, but, you know, there's theory, and then there's theorem, which are facts. And a lot of these conspiracy theories are becoming theorems. We're watching them be, you know, proved. So, you know, Jacques Vallée said that human beings are under the control of a strange force that bends them in absurd ways, forcing them to play a role in a bizarre game of deception. And, you know, Jacques Vallée was one of our, you know, leading ufologists for decades now. So we know that there's, as I said earlier, inside the earth. And one of the Bible prophecies has to do with, besides deception and earth changes and all the stuff that we're experiencing, the last one is an alien invasion. It actually says that. There will be an alien invasion, not from outer space, from inner space, from inside the earth. They're going to surface. Different creatures, different beings, and they describe them. And, you know, they're not the good ones. So, you know, we're seeing this, that our reality is being compromised. They're coming into our reality, and sometimes they show up on infrared or, you know, certain types of technology, and other times, you know, people can't tell the difference. Okay, back to our culture. You know, truth is stranger than fiction. We've been given this information through TV and film for a very long time. You know, and we can look at it, oh, it's just fun, it's entertainment, but there's messages in there. There's concepts that are being communicated to prepare us from what's happening. Now, I grew up in the 60s, okay, with the Jetsons. And I was told as a child, well, that's, you know, it's future, it's way up. We have all that. In fact, we just went through the pandemic, and every single one of those things was our reality daily, right? Telemedicine, video calls. So did they make it up? Was it someone's imagination? This is what I question. Or did somebody hand them these concepts and say, here, put it in the script. We need to prepare the public. So there's, yeah, time. Okay. So let's see. I'm not where I want to be. Oh well. Okay. Just another, I'm sorry. So this is the calendar and the time and how the time has been manipulated. Okay? So we're not even like operating on any astronomical calendar right now. We're still under the auspices of Rome. And that should tell you volumes about the battle we're in. So it says that the Antichrist changes times and seasons, and a lot of people believe the Antichrist was the Roman Empire, and he comes through the Roman Empire in the end times. But they change the calendars, okay? And they change, and so we're not, people don't understand where we are, so they're confused. We're closer than you think we are. So again, this fiction, this science fiction, the Loki series, basically revealed not only has the timeline been manipulated, but who's manipulating it. And suffice to say, without me spoiling it for you, were these giants. And then once they lopped, when him and her, they lopped the heads off the giants, they were basically robots. And who was controlling the robots? AI, the reptilians. So there's your Loki series in a nutshell. Why are they telling us this? Okay, and then look at this, and I thought, well, isn't that interesting that this is Marduk, and Marduk is the lord of not only Babylon, but he claimed to be the lord of Nibiru. So maybe we should take a look at him again. And here you have Thanos looking just like the statue of Marduk. Now, whether the Marvel artists drew inspiration, I don't know. But isn't that coincidental that they're both wearing the same gauntlet? And one is like, 4000 BC or something. So I'm going to just go through these a little quick because this is all in my books. Aquaman. So I want to end with Aquaman. So, look at all the water gods we've had. We've had the Dagon, the fish god of Egypt. We've had Neptune, Vishnu, and now we have Aquaman. So we need to take a look at this, because what is Aquaman trying to prepare us for? And that is, what's the big story in ufology is the USOs, is what's coming out of the oceans, okay? And it's like Atlantis rising. So this was me on Indian Rocks Beach, and I went there to visit a couple of years ago, so that picture's just a couple of years old. But back in 1995, I didn't have a cell phone or even a camera, and I was sitting on the beach one night watching the sunset. The sun had gone down, everybody's hanging out, it's balmy, stars are out, not a cloud in the sky, and there's rumbling coming from the shoreline. And I thought, it must be dolphins, because a lot of times they come and they feed, the fish come close, and then started bubbling and more rumbles, and then I started seeing metallics. I'm like, whoa, what's that? It can't be a submarine, that's a little too close. And then it started to rise, and it looked just like that. That is not my photo. That photo was actually taken by the US Navy in 1971 in the Arctic Circle. But that's what I saw. I saw a silver disc-shaped craft emerge out of the Gulf of Mexico off of Indian Rocks Beach in April of 1995. And I was like shocked. That's what woke me up, and that's what got me. And then I didn't even know about MUFON until then. And I had a friend tell me, who was a member of MUFON, that MUFON had received 350 calls that night from other people all along the beach who saw the same craft from different angles. So I know I wasn't alone. And that's what made me go down these rabbit holes and trying to figure out what is going on. And I uncovered a lot of this in the Bible. This is in the Bible. The ancients have been trying to tell us this for thousands of years. The religious, the churches, and all those people, they don't want you to know about it, because they want to keep controlling. They want to be the authority of God on church, the Church of God on the earth, right? That's what the Vatican is about. So anyway, this has been going on for a long time, and nothing new under the sun. And then I saw, this was in the week that I was there. This was in the Tampa Triangle, this piece about almost like the Bermuda Triangle, but it's Tampa Bay, Gulf of Mexico. And this was just like a few days after I left. That photo was taken in May of 22. And of course we have the Gulf Breeze incident, which is, also the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot happening under the ocean bed. So what's happening what is it with the oceans all over the world? We're seeing USOs come out of the ocean. It's no coincidence. It's not all ours. To suggest, oh, it's one of our secret spaces, so maybe some of it is, but not. And they're all different shapes too. So this is all part of that grouping of those photos that were declassified that the Navy took in the Arctic Circle in 1971. Everybody knows this picture because that's what started disclosure. That's the famous Tic Tac that was also seen going in and out of the oceans. And then here we have the portals again. So this is my sketch because, all right, so one of the things that I used to do was I used to stay up all night because I thought if I stayed up all night, I won't get abducted. They only do abductions at night, not during the day. So I stayed up all night on my my balcony, and I watched the sky change, which was kind of awesome, you know, to watch the dawn. And at the moment of dawn, I saw that. And that was in 1995, all right? Then I started seeing it in Marvel movies, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now it's in every single Marvel movie. So I wasn't the only one that saw that. So that means that the Earth has this protective etheric web that kind of looks like a honeycomb, and they open, there's tears, and there's holes, and they move in and out of, and that's how they come and go. So I already showed you that. That's just to connect that dot again. And here's more of those USOs. You can see they're all different shapes. You've got the cylinders, the cigar shape. There's like triangle, the flat saucer ones, coming and going in the ocean. So our government has known about this for decades. Nothing new. But then this came out last year. They started calling them motherships. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. We're almost there. And so isn't that something? So now that's part of our vernacular. We can talk about, we can say motherships because they said it must be motherships. So I'm sorry, I'm not where I wanted to be here, but I'm gonna just show you about the implants real quick, and then we'll go for a break. So the implants, as I showed you on my cover, they go into different parts of the body. They're not all the same. Now I'm not an artist, I'm a writer, but those are my sketches because that's what I saw. So the stick figure, that's us. We have etheric body, 7 layers to it. That's who we are. So I am not in my body is in me. Because when your body ceases to exist, you go into your soul, and that's your etheric body. That's your egg. That's how God created us. So they know how we're wired. They know how we're created. They know how to manipulate us. And implants is how they're using it. Is how they're using implants to manipulate us. So there's all these different types, and I saw this. I saw it like it's a vision. So there's all these different types of implants for different things. Some of them keep people in these conditions. They cause illnesses. They cause, there's religious implants. There's implants that keep people in their programs. So the up the nose one, and this is a book that was written just for alien abductees. So I had an implant up my right nostril. So I started researching this, and there's this whole scientific article about, that the nasal implants are used for the pregnancies, believe it or not, because they go up through the nasal cavity into the brain. So I had this little BB thing, and I had it for years, and then when I went through, after my near-death experience, I went through deliverance, and it disappeared. And also, my abduction stopped. And I stopped being used. Okay, so I got free of that, and that was because I broke the contracts and the agreements with the aliens. I had to do that. You have to take responsibility for your own pieces, and then God fills in the rest. But there's other types of implants. People have implants in their hands, in their feet, in their ankles, in their legs. And these are for different purposes, tracking devices, or used for different programs. And then there's this one. Okay, so the cruciform implant, I saw that, and I saw it because this is the religious this is the religious spirit. So the religious spirit holds this cruciform implant in place, which keeps everybody, roiling over religious differences, religious wars. And then last summer, I went to go see Mission Impossible, the Day of Reckoning, the new one, and that was the whole plot of the movie, was the cruciform key, which is the one on the right there. That was from Mission Impossible, and that same symbol is the cruciform implant. I thought, isn't that interesting? So there again, another message in the movies. So this is part of healing, and it has to do with like religious trauma. And that's why people deny the Creator, and they deny God, and they deny themselves a relationship with God, because they've been traumatized by religious people and religious institutions and religiosity and cults and all this stuff because of that implant. And that implant has caused a tremendous amount of religious trauma, to the point where people just go, I don't want him. But you need him. So how can we, and I'm Jewish, I'm not supposed to believe in, how can we reconcile the Messiah with who we are and where we came from? It doesn't matter about religion. It's all about relationship, because it's your breath. You take your last breath and you're going to see your Creator. So he's the one you need to focus on, and that's, don't want to get too, like I said, trigger warning. I'm not into, I'm not pushing any religion. Believe me, just the opposite. Relationship, because the religion, and this is part of discernment, because this is going to happen again in the end times through the Vatican. So one thing that blew my mind was when I was researching disclosure. My fourth book, Covenants, is all about this. Is the Vatican wants to control disclosure. They want to drive it. They have two of the world's most sophisticated telescopes, and they're watching Nibiru, and they're watching aliens. And there it is. Lucifer. They named it Lucifer because they believe Lucifer is Christ. All right? And there's a guy, Consolmayo, him and Paul Muller, they're the two astronomer Jesuit priests that are put in charge of the two Lucifer telescopes. One of them is on Vatican Hill, and the other one is on Mount Graham, Tucson, Arizona. They're here. So you have to ask, what are they doing? Why? Why do they have a vested interest in this? Because we're not done with them. The final showdown, the final battle ends up through this Antichrist that comes through the ancient Church of Rome, which is now called the Vatican, which means discerning serpent in Latin, by the way. 53 miles of books underground, holding back from science, from history, from all of us. So I quote a lot of these books in my books. That's why I'm showing them here. And this is in the Vatican. These are pieces of artwork. These are, and I'm going to show you this after the break. These are actually in the middle. Those are actual photos from the space telescopes of these planets that we're seeing around the sun. They know about that. And it's in the ancient artwork too. It's busy, I know it's busy, but it's a collage to show that this has been going on since medieval times. So this is, let me see, where am I? Almost there. So, this is what I was telling you about, the false prophet, and he's definitely reptilian in a human body. And, well, we can go into this a little bit later about, and this is just more about the etheric body, just to show you, like, you know, how the chakras, I'm sure everybody knows about chakras, but you know, they're not only in the front, they're also in the back. So sometimes they come from behind. So this also has to do with the genetic warfare and racism. This is what caused it, this is what created it, and these are the roots of it. So I'm going to end on this just for a break, and then we can come back and get into part 2. Thank you.